A black CIA agent gets cuffed mid-operation by the very people she was protecting. She sat low in the seat, one hand on the steering wheel, the other cradling a phone that wasn't recording or dialing, just a decoy. The sun had started its descent over Savannah, Georgia, casting a warm orange light across the neat rows of homes in the Sandfly neighborhood. To anyone passing by, Keisha Delaney looked like just another woman waiting on a friend, maybe checking her messages. But Keisha wasn't here to chat or catch up. She was watching the cream-colored house on the corner, porch lights off, blinds halfway drawn. 2 cars in the driveway, but nobody had gone in or out in over an hour. Her informant said the suspect was holed up inside, possibly armed, definitely paranoid. The guy had ties to a domestic arms network she and her team had been tracking for 6 months. Her job? Confirm presence. Don't engage. Call it in if anything moved. That's all. No backup, no vest, no badge showing. Just a rental car and nerves sharp enough to cut steel. She took a slow sip from a cold coffee, the kind that tasted like cardboard but kept her grounded. Her eyes flicked between the windshield and the side mirror. Still nothing. The whole street looked frozen in time. Kids had stopped playing. Lawn sprinklers had clicked off. It was too quiet. But she liked that. Silence meant control. Silence meant no surprises. Until the dog barked. She looked left. A middle-aged woman was standing in her yard, one hand shielding her eyes from the sun, the other gripping a leash. Her small dog was yapping at Keisha's car like it had seen a ghost. Keisha didn't move, didn't blink. But the woman took a few steps forward, clearly trying to make sense of who this person was and why she hadn't moved in over 30 minutes. Keisha lowered her eyes. She knew that look. The longer you sit in a place people don't think you belong, the more dangerous it gets. She didn't need to be told that. That woman, whoever she was, turned and walked back inside, her phone pressed tight to her ear. Keisha's stomach dropped. She leaned forward, adjusted the mirror. Her heartbeat stayed steady, but her breath caught. She knew that call wasn't about her dog. It was about her. But Keisha couldn't leave. Not yet. The target was still inside. Inside her car, Keisha adjusted her posture slightly, pushing her back tighter into the seat. Her muscles were tense, not from fear, but from sheer focus. The moment that woman disappeared into her house, she started a mental countdown. 1 minute, maybe 2. That's usually how long it takes for someone to call the cops when they think you don't fit. She checked the house again. The target's house. Still nothing. Not a single curtain moved. Her earpiece buzzed softly. A low voice crackled through. "Bravo 1, what's your status?" Keisha pressed her thumb to the mic, clipped to her collar. Still eyes on, no movement. Possible compromise. Neighbor made a call. "Roger, sit tight. You're not cleared to move." She released the button and let her hands rest in her lap. The absurdity wasn't lost on her. She was sitting in a car, following orders from the federal government, tracking a suspected weapons trafficker, and someone just called the cops on her. A few minutes passed. She saw it before she heard it, flashing blue and red lights casting sharp colors across driveways and parked cars. Then came the sound of tires crunching over gravel. One marked car, then another. 2 officers stepped out, male, white. One was shorter, looked about late 30s, already reaching toward his belt. The other, older, more careful, radio in hand, scanned the street like he was looking for a threat. Keisha sat still. She could feel it in her chest. Not panic, but anticipation. She didn't want this, didn't need this, but she had to handle it exactly right. Her cover was thin, but real. The first officer approached her window, one hand near his holster. "Ma'am, you live around here?" Keisha calmly turned her head and spoke with just enough volume to be heard, but not provoke. "Government surveillance. I can't answer any questions." He blinked, clearly caught off guard by the answer. "You got ID?" She reached slowly into her jacket and pulled out a laminated federal ID. It didn't say CIA, but it was real and it was valid. "I'm on assignment. I'm not permitted to disclose details." The older officer now joined, standing just behind his partner. "Mind stepping out of the vehicle?" That was the moment. Keisha knew the mission was already fraying. If she stepped out, she'd lose visual on the house. If she didn't, things could spiral. She tried one last time. "You're interfering with a federal investigation. You need to radio this in." Right now. The younger officer's hand moved toward his weapon. Not out, but close enough. That's not how this works. Step out of the car, now. Keisha locked eyes with him. You're making a mistake. But the second officer had already stepped toward her door. Keisha felt the momentum shifting. Fast. The younger officer's tone shifted, more clipped now. Ma'am, we're not going to ask again. Step out of the vehicle. Keisha's fingers stayed loose on her lap. Her heartbeat calm. She wasn't new to this. She had been in rooms with foreign spies, held her breath under interrogation lights, shadowed cartel contacts in cities where she didn't speak the language. But this was different, because this time her enemy didn't know they were looking at an ally. I'm not resisting, she said, but I can't move without compromising an active op. You need to call this in. Ask for Deputy Director Leo Evans, passcode Echo 93 Delta. The older cop paused. He looked at the ID dot again, looked at her, and then stepped aside to radio dispatch. But the younger one didn't like the stall. Get out of the car, now. Keisha didn't move. I'm telling you. He opened her door. Out of the car, he shouted. She put one foot out, slow, then the other, hands visible, palms open. Keep your hands where I can see them. They are. Turn around. She hesitated. That was all it took. In one swift motion, he reached for her arm, twisting it behind her back, pushing her chest toward the hood of the car. Hey, the older cop shouted, stepping forward. Stand down! I haven't cleared this yet! But it was too late. Her cheek pressed cold against the metal. Her shades had fallen, and for the first time, her full face was exposed. Sweat beading at her brow, her jaw clenched tight. Keisha didn't scream, didn't fight. She endured. The younger officer barked orders. You got weapons on you? I'm a federal agent. Let go of me. Yeah? Funny how that works. The older cop ran back to the squad car, holding the mic tight to his mouth. He wasn't yelling. That was the real sign of urgency. He knew now something wasn't right. He was trying to keep it quiet. Keisha looked up and saw the neighbor, the woman from earlier, peeking through her blinds, hand over her mouth. Another face popped up next to her, maybe her son, both of them watching like it was some TV episode, not someone's life. She was cuffed now, sitting on the curb, hands behind her back, shoes scraping against the sidewalk. The younger cop was pacing, trying to stay in control of a situation he clearly didn't understand. The older one was on the radio, voice low but words picking up speed. Keisha tilted her head up just slightly. The suspect's house. Still no movement. Or, wait. The curtain shifted, just for a second. She knew that meant he had eyes on her, maybe even a camera watching from inside. Now the whole op was compromised, and he knew someone was watching him. The SUV would be coming soon, but time had already run out. But before the older cop could finish his radio call, the sound of tires sliding across pavement cut through the heat like a blade. The unmarked SUV screeched into view, dark gray and wide like it meant business. It didn't slow until the last second. The doors popped open before the engine even stopped. Out stepped Director Leo Evans, tall, gray at the temples, suit wrinkled from a long flight. His face was tight with fury, but his voice was ice. He flashed a badge so quickly it felt like a slap. Release her, now. The younger officer stepped back instinctively. Who? Evans didn't look at him. He looked straight at Keisha, still sitting cuffed on the curb, dust clinging to her sweat. You good? He asked. She didn't answer right away. She was staring at the house. The target saw me. He followed her gaze, one nod. Yeah, I figured. Whole op's blown. He turned back to the officers, voice flat. Did she show you ID? The younger cop swallowed. Yeah, but she wouldn't give details. She was acting secretive. She's a CIA officer, Evans snapped. Her assignment was covert. You just blew a surveillance operation tied to an illegal arms trade stretching across 4 states. The street went still. Even the older cop looked like he'd been punched. Evans walked over and pulled the cuffs from her wrists himself. You all right? Keisha stood slowly. Her shoulders rolled stiffly, but her expression didn't change. I'm not hurt. Just done here. The older officer cleared his throat. Sir, we were responding to a civilian call, and you ignored a federal credential. You didn't call it in until after she was cuffed. That's obstruction of a federal investigation. You're lucky we don't press charges. Evans turned to the neighbor's house. The blinds dropped fast. He gave it one more look, then glanced down the street. People were watching. Phones were probably out now. It was only a matter of time before the wrong clip made it to the internet. Keisha grabbed her sunglasses from the ground, bent them back into shape. She didn't bother putting them on. She looked at the cops. No anger, no fear, just that silent pressure that made people feel small. "Next time someone shows you a federal ID," she said quietly, "you listen before you reach for your cuffs." But just as she started walking toward the SUV, the radio on the older cop's shoulder crackled, and the dispatcher said something that made them all freeze. "Dispatch to Unit 47. Be advised. Suspect just fled the premises on foot. Black male, late 30s, possibly armed. Last seen running northbound toward Truman Park." Everyone froze for half a second. Then chaos. Evans spun toward Keisha. "Did you see him leave?" "No," she said, "but he saw me get cuffed. That was the window." The younger cop looked stunned. "Wait, that house?" Evans shot him a look that could melt steel. "Yes, the one you parked in front of like you were delivering pizza." Keisha was already moving. She opened the SUV, yanked out a small tactical bag, and strapped on her radio earpiece. "I'm going after him. I know his face. You two stay out of my way." She started running, not a full sprint, but fast enough to close ground without losing control. She cut across the neighbor's lawn, jumped a low hedge, and made for the alley behind the houses. The sun was lower now. Shadows were growing longer. It was harder to see clearly. Her shoes kicked up bits of gravel as she moved. A flash of movement ahead. She paused, listened. Then another sound, a clatter. Maybe a trash can lid falling. Could have been deliberate. Could have been panic. Either way, it was him. She kept her steps quiet as she crept toward the sound. Her hand hovered near her belt, but she didn't draw. Not yet. She wasn't here to kill anybody, just to catch him. But then, a figure dashed from behind a storage shed. She bolted after him. "Stop!" she shouted. He looked back, eyes wide, ducking under a low-hanging tree branch. He was fast. Too fast. If he hit the street, she'd lose him. She needed to slow him down. "Freeze! Federal agent!" No response. She reached into her belt and threw a small flash beacon toward the curb, timed for just as he turned the corner. It burst with a loud crack and white light, enough to disorient but not injure. He staggered. That was all she needed. She lunged and tackled him against a fence, hard. They both hit the ground, her knee pressing into his back. He struggled for a second, but she already had his wrist pinned. "Try it again," she growled, "and you're gonna wake up in a hospital bed." He cursed under his breath, spitting into the grass. Footsteps pounded in behind her, the older cop now trying to redeem himself. "You got him?" he called out, breathing hard. Keisha didn't look up. "He's not going anywhere." The suspect didn't say much, but his face told the whole story. He wasn't just scared. He was confused, angry. "You're the woman who was sitting in the car," he said. "That's right," Keisha said, gripping his wrist tighter. "While you were counting your money and hiding blueprints in your basement, I was 10 feet away watching everything. And I'd still be watching if these officers hadn't decided I looked suspicious." But as she stood over him, sirens now echoing down the block, it wasn't the suspect she kept thinking about. It was how easily it all nearly slipped through her fingers. Keisha sat in the back of the SUV now, elbows on her knees, eyes locked on the passing sidewalks as Director Evans drove. The suspect was in a cruiser 2 blocks behind them, head ducked, hands cuffed. This time, the right person. But victory didn't feel like much. Evans glanced at her through the rearview mirror. "You should have pulled rank sooner." She didn't answer right away, just watched a kid ride his bike along the sidewalk, dodging a row of garbage bins like it was a game. "If I'd pulled rank too soon," she said finally, "I'd have blown the op." He grunted. "And if you hadn't held your ground, they might have done worse than put you on the curb." Keisha exhaled slowly, her voice quieter now. "I've been overseas, Leo. I've been followed, cornered. I've had people put guns to my head in languages I barely understood. But nothing feels like being handcuffed in your own country because someone thinks you don't belong." Silence filled the SUV. The engine hummed low, but even that sound felt heavy. Evans tightened his grip on the steering wheel. "I'm not going to lie to you. I thought we were past this. Thought the badge meant something." Keisha looked out the window. It does, but not to everybody. They pulled up to the safe house, an old duplex turned temporary ops center, and she climbed out, stretching her sore wrists. The marks were already starting to bruise. Two agents in suits approached the SUV, both white, both clean-cut, and fresh out of Quantico. They nodded politely, offered to debrief. One even held the door open like a valet. She walked past them without speaking. Inside, she poured herself a cup of stale coffee, the kind that had been sitting on a burner way too long. Bitter, burnt. But she drank it anyway. It grounded her. Evans followed her in. "You want me to file a formal complaint?" Keisha shook her head. "No point. It'd get buried under standard procedure and miscommunication. They'll say it was a tense situation, that they were responding to a concerned citizen, that they acted in good faith." He leaned against the counter. "And you? You good with that?" She looked up at him, the lines under her eyes deeper now. "I'm used to it. Doesn't mean I'm good with it." He nodded slowly. Then Keisha asked something she hadn't asked in years. "You ever think about leaving this job?" Evans gave a tired smile. "Every week, but I stay, because if I leave, who takes my place? Some guy who doesn't understand what it's like walking into a room and having to prove every single time that you belong there?" She stared at him for a second. "Yeah, that's why I stay too." But just as she turned to leave the kitchen, one of the new agents stepped into the room with a file, and a question that would change everything they thought they knew about the mission. The agent held up the folder, his eyes wide. "We found something," he said, handing it over, "from the laptop we pulled out of the house." Evans opened the folder, flipping past receipts and coded emails until he hit a single sheet. His face changed. Keisha leaned over. It wasn't just a local operation. The man they caught was part of a much larger ring, shipping illegal weapons, not just across states, but to militia cells preparing for coordinated attacks. Multiple targets, multiple cities, schools, community centers, churches. One address stood out, a small church in Fayetteville. She'd visited it once. Her godson had been baptized there. "This was real," she muttered, "worse than we thought." Evans looked up, jaw tight. "Keisha, if you hadn't stuck around, if you'd left when that woman called, they would have moved everything by morning," she finished for him, "and nobody would have stopped them." The room was quiet again, but not the kind of silence that weighs you down. It was the kind that makes you realize how close you came to the edge and how different things could have been. She sat down and rubbed her wrist. The bruise was spreading now. Her skin didn't just hurt. It remembered. "I was 5 minutes away from being another viral video," she said softly. "Another headline they'd forget about in a week." Evans sat across from her. "Instead, you saved lives. You saved a lot of lives." She nodded, but the pride didn't come easy. Across town, two officers sat in a squad room, quietly reviewing their body cam footage. Neither of them spoke. They didn't have to. What they saw, the moment Keisha was cuffed, the way she never resisted, the way they assumed, it all looked different now. Not just through the lens of hindsight, but through shame. The younger one, Officer Green, finally broke the silence. "I didn't see it," he said. "All I saw was someone parked in the wrong place, didn't even ask why she was there." The older cop, Mason, gave a quiet grunt. "That's the problem," he said. "We didn't ask. We just moved." Across the street, the neighbor who made the call stood on her porch now. She hadn't left her house since the incident. She held a cup of tea, untouched, and watched her son ride his bike down the driveway. He looked over at her. "Mom, is that the lady from yesterday?" She didn't answer, just watched the horizon. Finally, she whispered, mostly to herself, "She was protecting us, and I called the cops on her." Back at the safe house, Keisha stood and stretched. "I should get some rest," she said. "I've got a flight to DC tomorrow." Evans raised an eyebrow. "You sure? You just caught the biggest break in 6 months." She gave a half smile. "I've done my part. Time to pass the baton." He nodded. "You ever want to stop doing this? I wouldn't blame you." She looked back at him. "But if I did, who takes my place?" She walked toward the door, her steps slow but certain. Her job hadn't been to make people comfortable. It was to protect them, even the ones who feared her, especially them. She opened the door and stepped out into the late evening air. No more flashing lights, no more questions, just her, a city she didn't belong to, and a mission nobody saw coming. But that was okay. She never needed credit. She just needed the truth to matter. Because sometimes, the person you're afraid of is the one keeping you alive. And sometimes, the hero isn't the one with the gun. It's the one who stayed calm, stood firm, and never stopped doing the right thing, even when no one believed her. If you've watched this far, ask yourself this: who do we protect, and who do we protect against? Speak up when it matters. Question your instincts, because silence and assumptions almost cost lives. Like, share, and leave a comment if this made you think twice.